Multiple choice questions are one of the key reasons why students fail the IELTS listening test. These are one of the most challenging questions, but they are actually much easier than you think. And that's what this video is going to do. First of all, we're going to show you the unique problems that multiple choice questions bring up and how to solve those problems. We're also going to give you tips that our Band 9 students have used to get a Band 9 in IELTS listening for multiple choice questions. And then finally, we're going to give you the same strategy that we give our VIP students for multiple choice questions. All you have to do is learn that strategy step by step, apply it to practice tests, and then you can sit the test on test day. And if you get multiple choice questions, you're going to be very happy because you're going to get full marks. So let's have a look at multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions are going to look like this. It will normally be a series of questions. There will be a question, and then there will be 3 or 4 options. Your goal is to pick the correct answer. So let's think about unique problems and give you some unique tips for IELTS listening multiple choice questions. The first thing you should do is when you see multiple choice questions, as soon as you finish the questions before, move on and read the multiple choice questions. It's crucial that you understand the difference between each of the different options and you understand the questions that are coming up. What a lot of students do is they might be, focusing on this, they finish this section and they're so worried about did I get the correct answer here that they don't move on and read these questions. Let's say, for example, you have completely messed up this question. It is a much better strategy just to give an educated guess for these questions and move on and understand these. Because if you think, oh my God, I've messed up these, I'm going to fail, I'm going to mess up my whole life, and then you focus on these and you don't move forward, then you've probably got these wrong and you're probably going to get all of these wrong. All right. If you mess these ones up, go and give an educated guess, give your best answer, and then move on quickly because you really do need to read all of these and understand all of these. Next is a good idea to underline or think of the keywords in each question. So what I like to do is focus on keywords within the question. So 21, 22, 23, 24. So that will be here, 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 and here. Within each question, what are the keywords? So discover and reading. Then we need to look at the 3 options and think about the keywords within each of the 3 options. So why were they first created? How was the ice kept frozen? And where? The next step is to think about the difference between each of the 3 options. So for this one, it's quite obvious. Let's have a look at the last one. Good value for money, useful variations, more useful than domestic appliances. So as you can see, these 2 are quite similar. This one's talking about money and it being good value for money. These 2 are both talking about usefulness. So they're very similar. So you need to think, okay, both of these are talking about usefulness, but what's the difference between the usefulness of each of these? This one's talking about there being lots of variations, useful variations, whereas this one is a comparison. It is comparing that they're more useful than other domestic appliances. So it's comparing refrigerators, fridges, to other appliances such as a vacuum cleaner, a Hoover, a toaster, a kettle, all of those things. Whereas B is talking about just domestic fridges and there being lots of different types of fridges. So by underlining the keywords and thinking about the differences, it makes it much easier to think about what they're saying. The next thing to remember is that you should not think about what is the first answer that I hear and write down the first answer that I hear. So let's take the first question, for example. What did Annie discover from reading about ice houses? Why they were first created? So in the recording, they might talk about why they were first created or how they were first created. But that might not be one of the options that relates to what did Annie discover from reading about ice houses. She might have listened to something, or her dad or her mother told her why they were first created, and then later she talks about She was reading about where they were located. If you just note down the first one that you hear and you don't think about the specific question, then you're going to be in trouble. So it is not a listening test, write down the first thing that you hear. That is not what a listening test is. For multiple choice, it is not just a listening test, it is a thinking test. So you need to read the question, understand the question, and then think about, related to the recording, what is the correct answer. It's not a listening test. It is a listening and thinking test. The next thing is what you should not do. Do not focus in on one question, get lost, panic, and then miss the rest of the questions. So for example, if you were doing 21, what did Annie discover from reading about ice houses? And you lose focus, or you get confused, or you don't understand what's going on, then it is very, very important that you just leave that question, make an educated guess, and move on to the next ones. Because what happens is you miss that, you lose focus, and you focus in on that, and you're like, oh my God, I just missed that. And then you're like, okay, which one should I choose? And then the recording keeps going, and you've just messed up 22, 23, and 24. They will be in order, so you need to decide what the correct answer is. Be decisive. I know that's difficult for many people in the world to be decisive and choose the correct answer, but if you don't choose an answer, you're sacrificing the rest of the questions. The next thing is be very careful about qualification statements. These are words like but or however. So if we go down to 24, she might say something like, yeah, generally they're good value for money. However, in recent years, or but recently, they've become very, very expensive. So you might hear the first part of that sentence and think, oh, good value for money. And you mark that as the correct answer. But then she says, but, however, changes her mind, qualifies what she's about to say, and you've just messed the whole thing up. So listen out for those words, but or however, and if you hear them, think about what the whole sentence means, not just the first part of the sentence. Okay, now that we know what's going to come up, let's think about our step-by-step strategy for multiple choice questions. Number one, always, never changes, whatever the question is, read the instructions carefully. Choose the correct letter, A, B, or C. I know that's very obvious and you're a very intelligent person, but make sure that you read the instructions. The next step is read each question and think about what is actually being asked. So let's say 24, for example, what do Jack and Annie agree regarding domestic fridges? Not what do they think separately, what do they agree on? If you don't read the question, it's going to be very difficult for you to find the answer to number 24 because the key word there is agree, and that's the next step, highlight key words. The next step is to look at each option and understand the difference between each option. Next is to think about any synonyms or paraphrasing that you might hear. So for example, it took a long time to become popular. A long time could be 50 years, 100 years. They might say it took forever. Popular, they might say famous or widely used or used by the masses. There are many, many things that might come up. Now, you're not going to be able to sit there and think about synonyms and paraphrasing forever, but just try and be aware of them and think of the obvious ones. Don't start off with 21A and try and think of 20 different synonyms for the word created. Just think of the obvious one, created, made, and keep moving, keep going through that. Then the next one, if you can, predict the correct answer. This is a little bit difficult for multiple choice questions, so I wouldn't try and do this too much because often the three answers are very, very possible. But if you have time, try and make predictions, but if you can't predict anything, don't worry too much about it. Now the listening is going to start. What you're listening out for are keywords, synonyms, paraphrasing. So don't just listen for the keyword, listen for the synonym of that keyword. Then there you will know when they're talking about that. So for example, what did Annie discover from reading about ice houses? So she might literally say, when I was reading about ice houses, or she might say, I read a book, or I was studying. When you hear that, you know, okay, she's going to start talking about the different options. Then listen for the different keywords within the different options and pick the correct answer. That brings us on to the next step. Listen to the whole section. So the section where she's talking about reading about ice houses, do not listen for the first thing that she says. Listen to the whole section and then decide your correct answer. Because there will be distractors, she might change her mind, she might talk about other things. You're trying to break the recording down into 4 parts. So there's 4 parts here, there's 4 questions. You need to break the recording down into 4 parts. Okay, she's going to talk about this. Listen to that whole part, choose the correct answer. Then 22, listen to that whole part, choose the correct answer, and continue in that fashion. If you think that you've found the correct answer, put a tick beside it so you think, probably is this one, but keep listening because she might change her mind or the answer might change. But if you are 100% sure at the end, choose that as your correct answer. And finally, the final step, make an educated guess if you're not sure. If you're not sure, pick the one that you think is the highest chance of being correct, move on to the next one. And that's you done. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Now you need some practice tests. And the good news is I've put together another video for you that shows you where you can find real, reliable practice tests for free. Click on this video and it will show you exactly where to find these for free on the internet. Enjoy.